Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. I've been talking about American presidents, and today I'm going to be continuing my discussion regarding the Fourth Amendment. And I'm going to be showing an interplay with the Sixth Amendment as well. So, the Fourth Amendment, that's one of the amendments within the Bill of Rights. Of course, the Bill of Rights, authored by our fourth president, James Madison, and it protects us, our liberties, our freedoms against government overreach, government abuse, right? So the Fourth Amendment, it's one of those amendments. It's called rights of accused. That deals with the rights of the accused. So the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, even the Seventh Amendment, which is civil, and then the Eighth Amendment. These deal with the rights of the accused. So the Fourth Amendment, it's so it's sort of the beginning, the initiation of trial proceedings. Today, I'm going to be talking about judicial misconduct. Um, American citizens, the accused, we're still entitled to a fair trial. So I'm showing the interplay with the Sixth Amendment. Elements of the Sixth Amendment includes your right to know your charges. If you've charged with a crime, you have a right to know your charges. You have a right to counsel, that's an attorney to defend you in a criminal case. If you can't afford an attorney, the state will provide you a paid attorney. And then, of course, you're entitled to a fair trial. So where there's when the judicial process has been abused, if it's biased, then you can't be entitled to that's not a fair trial. So you're entitled to an impartial judge. That's part of having a fair trial, and that's why I'm going to be talking about judicial misconduct today and prosecutorial misconduct. And again, like I said, I'm going to be applying it to a specific case, and that's the prosecutorial misconduct brought against me in Montgomery County, Maryland, which has been superintended for the past 3 years by Judge James Bonifant of Montgomery County Circuit Court in Maryland. So again, elements of the Sixth Amendment, you have a right to a speedy trial. Okay, a speedy trial. So there's been an unnecessary delay. It's been 3 years. It's misdemeanors that I've been charged with, and I haven't had my day in court. I haven't had a trial by jury. That's also another element, right protected in the Sixth Amendment. You have a right to a public trial by jury, right? I haven't had that at all because there's been an unnecessary delay. Judge Bonifant has done two incompetency to stand trial orders against me. Those were actually fraudulent. They're based on fraud of the court. I'm not going to get into that today. But again, based on falsified information, fabrications, in order to just coerce me. In fact, the state attorney who filed the charges originally, she's disqualified herself now because I filed a prosecutorial misconduct complaint against her since she had a conflict of interest. She was a classmate of Jide Warire, the man who filed the perjured ex parte uh, emergency evaluation petition against me. She was a classmate and friend of Sheye Warire, who's a son of Jide Warire. So I'd filed a prosecutorial misconduct complaint against her to disqualify herself, right? Because she has an interest in a close relationship with the party, in the case. My opponent, the person who's witnessing, the chief witness for the prosecution, for the prosecution. So, so Judge Bonifant has been um, he's been using these dilatory antics, dilatory antics, like he's been causing unnecessary delays. It's been almost 3 years now, and of course that means evidence gets destroyed, witnesses go away, witnesses for me. Evidence gets destroyed, people forget, and so that impairs the uh, it impairs the integrity of of evidence, and it it adversely impacts the ability of the defense to strategize and put up a good defense, because when they don't have evidence, when their evidence when evidence that can prove to exculpate me, the defendant, when it's destroyed, or witnesses that are reliable go away, or they can't forget, or they're frustrated. Somebody can fall sick. Someone might pass away. Then it becomes unfair to me in the trial process, and that's what's been happening now. When there's an unnecessary delay, so that's also an administrative misconduct on the part of Judge James Bonifant. So it's a reason why I filed a judicial misconduct complaint against him as well. One of the reasons. Um, so other elements of the Sixth Amendment, again, you have a right to a fair and speedy trial, a public trial by jury. You have a right to counsel. You have a right to know your charges, and yeah, so that's pretty much a lot of the very important elements of the Sixth Amendment, and of course that works with the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment is very important because if you're in your home, you don't want to be in a situation like I fell into, and which has led me here. But in case it happens to you, unfortunately, you remember your rights and you can stand your ground. In our homes, by the way, you have a right to self-defense under the Castle Doctrine in Maryland. That means if there's an armed intruder that's coming at you, an armed intruder, you're in your home, and if you fear bodily injury or death, you have a right to self-defense, even up to using deadly force against an armed intruder. Fortunately, I didn't use deadly force against the police who came after me without an arrest warrant, without notifying me, without any form of warrant, without probable cause. I didn't use deadly force. I never injured any of them. In fact, I was the only one who was battered. I didn't batter any one of them. And I mentioned I'm going to be discussing a little bit about the prosecutorial misconduct as well. Um, so till today, as of the last time, as of October 26, 2023, my private attorney that I had at the time, his name was Steve Mercer, and he requested a bill of particulars that the state had failed to provide a bill of particulars specifying the type of second degree assault charge that that the state was charging me with, and because he said he'd looked through the body cam of over 30 cops who came to raid me in my home without an arrest warrant. So it was, first of all, an illegal search, right? It was an illegal search. It was in my home. There was no probable cause. I wasn't committing any crime. So he said he found that I didn't batter any one of them. And they're 20 feet away from me. They're far away. And he couldn't figure out what they meant by second degree assault because at that time it was just one charge. So another form of prosecutorial misconduct that the state has been doing is they've been piling on charges, right? When I was arrested, in order to get for the commission to get an arrest warrant when I was at the hospital, they lied and said I assaulted 5 police officers, and there was a first degree felony assault on 5 police officers. So each count was 25 years. So that was why the judge first denied me bond. Uh, so after all those charges were dismissed, there was a transmittal to the circuit court. The case number for that original case was D06 CR23 uh, 002968. So that all of those five counts were dismissed. They don't show anywhere anymore. They were expunged. But the case was transferred to it was transferred to the circuit court because typically, the district court deals with, lower level crimes, petty crimes. If it's a first degree case, then it's supposed to be in the circuit court in the first place. They should have filed with the circuit court. So it makes it to the circuit court, but at this point, the case number was now C15CR23000731, and there was just one charge of second degree assault. So when my attorney looked at all the body cam, as he said, he spent hours, over 6 hours, looking at the body cam of all over 30 cops who came to assault me, who came without an arrest warrant to my home on May 16, 2023, in which I was the only one who was assaulted. He said I didn't commit a battery on any one of them. So in the state of Maryland, they don't have a battery charge. They have a assault, various assault charges. It's a variety of assault charges. So battery is under assault as well. It could be second degree assault. So second degree assault is a large umbrella. It can involve a touching. It can not have a touching. So he asked specifically for the state to specify what form of assault, what modality they were talking about, because there was no battery. So till today, they haven't told us what sort of assault it was. But I'd written a motion to dismiss on my own by November 16, 2023. And I figured if they, that, I looked at maybe the only thing they could claim would be intent to frighten. And if they have that, it still won't work, right? They don't meet the statutory requirements for an intent to frighten assault. So they shouldn't have brought the charges in the first place. So I have another video in which I explain intent to frighten assault, right? So that means intent to frighten assault just means, there's no battery occurs, but the prosecution, the state is claiming that the defendants, they conducted themselves in such a way, or they demonstrated an act that was intended to invoke fear, to frighten the victim, right? And that the victim did, that they were in fright, that they were scared. So that's the sort of assault that 30 cops who were holding guns without an arrest warrant on a law-abiding middle-aged man who works for the federal government. That's a sort of assault that they're bringing, the sort of charge that they're bringing against me, even though they uh, almost murdered me. And they admitted, Jeffrey Ray on May 26, 2023, admitted that he intended to kill me with his Glock for no reason. So there was just while expressing a lot of racial animus, right? So he intended, it was a hate crime. The police came like a lynch mob trying to kill me in my own home. And to add insult to injury, they shot me, tased me multiple times, tear gassed me, and removed me naked in handcuffs, violating my civil and human rights and my dignity and my privacy rights because I was in my home. But the state attorney committed prosecutorial misconduct, adding insult to injury when they charged me with a second degree assault charge, and they've delayed it, even though they know they have no evidence. As my attorneys have said, they have no evidence to convict. They have no evidence for us to, our defense. I mean, as she's saying, my current attorney is saying that, hey, there's no assault anywhere. They can't prove it because there's also a mens rea requirement, an intent. There's no way they can prove my intent because there was a mistake of fact. I was a victim of a swatting, and it's evident, right? I was a victim of a swatting. I was a victim of so many things. I had been drugged on that day. I was a victim of a swatting, and I had my gestures, the fact that I was backing them, that was clear, and I was disabling the knife because they had locked me inside my apartment, right? Placed me under forced imprisonment, which is illegal. And so they had been gaslighting me severely. And so it put me in what's called a state of fright. And any action I take in a state of fright situation was involuntary, right? So, it doesn't meet any of the elements for statutory elements for an intent to frighten. I don't want to go beyond what I planned to discuss in this video. I'll do another video explaining the elements of intent to frighten assault. So in any event, the state goes ahead and commits prosecutorial misconduct because, one, they do not have probable cause. I've talked about what probable cause is. Probable cause, again, it means there are facts and circumstances. There are facts and circumstances within the knowledge of the officer with reliably trustworthy information. Reliably trustworthy information. That's very important, right? Sufficient to warrant a belief by a man of reasonable caution. Again, caution that a crime is being committed. So that was not the case. The police didn't have probable cause, and so they couldn't get an arrest warrant to come and arrest me in my home. They didn't have one. There was no probable cause. But so the prosecutor lacked probable cause. Then they lack evidence, because that's what we're still talking about. My attorneys have been saying they don't have any evidence that I committed this second degree assault they're talking about. That there's no evidence. So the only thing they could think of was that while the state has not yet specified in their provided a bill of particulars specifying the nature of the assault, the type of assault, the modality. Um, I am assuming that they mean intent to frighten. That's what the state says. And, it still doesn't meet the statutory requirements for an intent to frighten. So they don't have any evidence, right? There was no intent because I was someone in my home with castle doctrine protecting me, right? And armed intruders came, put me in fear of my life, and I'm entitled to self-defense. And of course, I thought it was a hoax because so we have to think about the facts and circumstances. The police working with the Navy had actually swatted me on that day. So they pretended I was going through a Navy General Officer Professions program. There's an email. The state has that email that I was a victim of a hoax, a swatting on that day. Right? It's like being punked. So they have no evidence. So those are two elements that are not met. And then the third one is it's in the interest of justice. Is it in the interest of justice for the prosecution to proceed, right? No, it's not, because I was an innocent man not committing any crime. I have no criminal history. I was an innocent man in my home, and I was a victim of a swatting. So that was an illegal state action, right? It violated my Fourth Amendment rights. Remember the Fourth Amendment, what we're protected from, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects uh, from unreasonable searches and seizures, right, um, shall not be violated, right? And no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported uh, by oath or affirmation, right? And particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. None of those requirements were met. So where the prosecutor doesn't meet those elements I stated earlier, then it will be prosecutorial misconduct to continue. So that's where we have a malicious prosecution. So um, why have they piled on charges, right? They've used false evidence, tainted evidence, right? Because the chief witnesses are, they filed cases with the courts, Maryland district courts, the Maryland district court, based on they got, approvals based on ex parte orders, right? The ex parte orders in which the two witnesses, Gurma Shumi, a neighbor who assaulted me with Jide Wari on May 14 in my house, and Jide Wari, right? Both of them had actually filed a complaint against them, had provided evidence to the state, and the state filed charges against them, right? Criminal charges against Jide Wari and Gurma Shumi. The ex parte orders they filed were not criminal, they were both civil. Gurma Shumi got a peace order and he lied. He committed perjury. Jide Wari also got an emergency evaluation petition. It's not a crime. It's a civil matter. It's domestic, and that was the purpose. The purpose of an EAP is to just go and do for the police. Ironically, it's the police that goes to take the individual and takes him to a hospital to do a psychiatric evaluation to make sure he's okay. That's the purpose of an EAP, right? I wasn't given notice. I didn't know the EAP was also a fabrication. So, the main witnesses of the state's malicious prosecution are based on their obtaining ex parte orders, fraudulently obtained ex parte orders that are based on perjury, right? And perjury is a felony. It's a felony crime, right? Perjury. So, the evidence is tainted. So every time the state files charges against these two witnesses, they do a nolle prosequi. They fail to proceed in the process in prosecuting because it's it it mars their own prosecution, right? It raises because they're the main chief witnesses, and then the state is filing charges against them. So they are bad faith dismissal when the state attorney uh, John McCarthy, when he's doing a nollie prosequi on Judicial and Germashumi. So that's a bad faith prosecution because they're tainted witnesses, and he knows they're tainted witnesses. So he's violating what's called the Brady rule when he knows that there's evidence that someone, a defendant, is actually innocent. He has to provide that evidence to the defendant, to the defense, and he has to, he shouldn't proceed. He should drop the charges. He shouldn't proceed with a bad faith malicious prosecution. So he knows the purpose of his proceeding to prosecute is to protect the police officers who committed perjury. The charge statements are perjured. I've done a video talking about their perjured statements. There have been several instances of perjury by the police officers, from Sergeant Charles Drengwitz, who filed a false incident report, to Jeffrey Ray, who shot me but committed perjury, and Sergeant John King, who came to my bond review on June the 2nd, 2023, and committed perjury as well. So several instances of perjury. And so they're using tainted evidence. They're using false witnesses, bad perjured testimonies. So that's why another reason why we have a malicious prosecution. Now let me move on to the judicial side. I've been saying Judge Bonifant was also committing judicial misconduct. So the judge is supposed to be like a neutral arbiter. He's a referee. He's not. He doesn't have skin in the game. He doesn't have any stake, right, in the dispute, right? There are two parties, and the judge is supposed to be the neutral judge. He's impartial. He shouldn't show favoritism to any one side. Judge Bonifant from the beginning has shown favoritism to the police, saying the police who removed me naked in my home did not have an arrest warrant or search warrant, who broke into my home, tear gassed my home, shot at me, tased me multiple times, almost killed me, who've falsified their statements, who've perjured their statements. And it's obvious. My attorney told the judge that there were significant distortions in the charge statement from what the body cam reveals. He's called them excellent police officers, excellent policing. They removed me naked from an American citizen, naked in handcuffs. Not just an American citizen, but a human being, naked in his handcuffs, no arrest record, working for the federal government, right? The charge statement said I'd been fired. Where did they get that from? My attorney went to confirm while I was still in jail that no, I was still employed in the Department of the Navy. I had my job. I got a newer position, very high six-figure position at the Pentagon. The judge knew that, right? And so, but I was removed in a disgraceful manner, naked in cuffs from my home where I lived alone. I wasn't fighting anybody. And then I was shot in the head. They had to do a surgical incision to remove the taser dart from my head. And the judge said he wanted me to lose my job, right? The judge said I was lucky to be alive. He was screaming at me, yelling at me. My friends come to court. My friend said Judge James Bonifant is crazy. He's racist. Those are the words my friend said. It's recorded, and they think he hates me. He's not fair, right? So his actions he's not treated me with decency. He has not, he's been cruel. He's been inhumane. He's made his bias very clear. So apart from his actions, in quotes, he's told lies. He said things like that, that I have bipolar disorder, when I don't, right? Even if I did, that's a private matter. He shouldn't be bringing that out in a public trial. If somebody did, he shouldn't be exposing their rights of privacy and stating it out to the public, right? That it violates HIPAA laws. It violates, even decency, right? But the thing is, I actually don't have bipolar disorder. I don't have a mental illness. Their state psychiatrists they did an evaluation. He coerced me to do an evaluation against my will. I didn't give consent. And those doctors did not have any diagnosis and stated clearly, I don't have bipolar disorder. I don't have any mental illness. But the judge had abused me. Where did he get this notion of bipolar disorder from? And that's where I'm saying Judge Bonifant has a conflict of interest. It turns out the hospital I was taken to by the police without my consent, where my family didn't know I had been taken to when I was removed from my home, which was really a kidnapping under color of law. That hospital, called MedStar Hospital, one of its directors is Judge James Bonifant. So that's a conflict of interest. He admitted that he failed to disclose that he had a relationship with the hospital, but he has an ongoing relationship with the hospital. So in which he has either a financial interest or fiduciary interest. So if they're not paying him as a director, he has a fiduciary interest because that's what the board of directors of a hospital do. He has a fiduciary interest, and so it to a public, the fact that he's deciding a case that involves a hospital he's on the board of, it doesn't. It has an appearance of impropriety. So he's supposed to disqualify himself, recuse himself from the case because he can't be rendering unfavorable judgment against a hospital on whose board he's a director, right? So I'm entitled to say, well, this judge can't be biased, can't be impartial in this case, and that's what he's done. He's tried to force me to, he's tried to coerce some kind of nostrum, even though I have no mental illness. And he's made this case all about mental illness, right? That's not what I'm charged for, right? If they're charging me with mental illness or whatever, they can never win a case because they have to be able to establish mens rea, which they won't be able to do. It'll be very difficult for them. So they should never have filed the charges in the first place. And the thing is, I don't have a mental illness. Their psychiatrists have said it till today. It's almost 3 years now. So the charges were obviously filed to be an obstacle to me filing a lawsuit against Montgomery County Police and the state for violating of my constitutional rights and the excessive and brutal force, disproportionate force used by the police on me, which almost got me killed. But Judge Bonifant has only increased the damages I've suffered by preventing me from going to work for almost 3 years. I had a six-figure job at the Pentagon. He said he wanted me to lose it. He locked me up for a long time. And, so apart from him barring me from going back to my apartment, he's also prevented me from having access to evidence, right? He's by barring me from going to my apartment because I'm relying, by barring me from working, first of all, it means I can't work and earn money to hire a competent private attorney that can defend me and have the case dismissed immediately, right? So that's something he's done. He's limited the resources available to me. So I have to rely on the Office of the Public Defender. My experience so far is that the Office of the Public Defender is co-opted by the State Attorney's Office and bullied by Judge Bonifant. Judge Bonifant, when I had a female attorney, a black female attorney representing me, he bullied her when she told him she wanted me to speak in court. All right, he told her no. Every time he denied her motions, always giving in to the states, right, to white people. So that was that. And, so the other thing is the Office of the Public Defender, my experience, there was an attorney who was co-opted by the state attorney and the judge to sabotage my case. That was what was going on. And that's unfair, right? So the Office of the Public Defender is within the Attorney General's office and it's paid for by the state. But at the same time, whoever is representing you, whatever public defender is representing you, is your attorney, right? And they have, total, their duty, their responsibility is for you and to win your case. But that's not what happens in Montgomery County Circuit Court, Maryland's Office of the Public Defender. Judge Bonifant and the state attorney co-opt and sabotage the office. They co-opt the Office of the Public Defender to sabotage the case of the defendants, indigent defendants in Montgomery County, Maryland. So I'm seeing a lot of the injustices and, of course, the shortcomings of the criminal justice system in Montgomery County, Maryland, at least. For instance, the use of arbitrarily competency evaluations, where they have a quack doctor, Dr. Julie Smith, who just arbitrarily writes an incompetent evaluations, not based on facts, but based on her lies and possibly her delusions. My mom was present, my family, they were present in the evaluations because they insisted I shouldn't do any evaluation without them being present. Because, I didn't leave Nigeria with a mental illness. May, the beginning, everybody was talking to me, there was no mental illness. They still haven't seen it. They can't charge me with a crime and then use it as a pretext to now force me to undergo some kind of mental illness in which they'll find me, they'll find a mental illness, and then they'll force me to take a treatment for a mental illness I don't have. They force their nostrums on people or members of marginalized communities, or just because they see me as a foreigner, even though I'm an American citizen. So I'm seeing the injustices in the Maryland criminal justice system, superintended by Judge James Bonifant, and he's been greenlighting these criminal acts violating the constitutional rights of Americans just because they're minorities. So, apart from the conflict of interest, in which Judge Bonifant has a fiduciary or financial interest in MedStar, and so which is involved a party in this case, in my case, and I've already filed a malpractice complaint against MedStar that's ongoing, right? And I'm filing a lawsuit. He should have recused himself because of that conflict of interest, right? And he inappropriately did not disclose that conflict of interest. I don't know if he's friends with Jide Wariri, the Warriors, or other parties involved. I do not know, but he is aware that there's tainted evidence. The witnesses, they're tainted because they perjured their statements. He knows that because my mother has already filed a court case in Nigeria. With sworn affidavits that have been provided to the court and to Judge Bonifant, that Jide Ware's EP is perjured. It's a perjured document, and Jide Ware is not even my uncle. Dr. David Wong told Judge Bonifant in my presence in court when he was talking about Jide Ware being my uncle. Dr. David Wong corrected the mendacious the lie by saying Jide Ware is not my uncle. It's just a culture. That in my culture, Nigerian culture, we just call people, elderly people, uncle and aunt, even though there's no consanguinity between us. So Judge Bonifant knows Jide Iwariri lied, that the EP is a fabricated document, that there's fraud on the court, and that was ostensibly what brought the people to the court. That's what brought the police to my apartment, to my home, where they falsely imprisoned me. They didn't have an arrest warrant, and it was, however, it was on June 25, 2025, that Dr. David Wong, my pastor and friend, he told Judge Bonifant that Jide Ware is not my uncle. However, Jide Ware misrepresented himself as my uncle on the fabricated EP, the perjured EP, and he said indicated that I had no other family, which was a fabrication. It was also a lie that the police continued in in the false report they provided to Suburban Hospital, which got transmitted to MedStar Hospital. So even though he knows that there's a lot of tainted evidence, there's fabrication, there's perjury, he's continued the case instead of, vacating the case, instead of nullifying and dismissing it. And he's told lies. I wrote a motion to dismiss on my own. My current attorney, she's come round to it after 3 years. She's come round to it, and she's supporting all the facts and points I raised within a little bit of seeing the case. I analyzed it, wrote a motion to dismiss myself. The attorney I had before, the public defender, she supported it. She wanted me to argue it. Judge Bonifant should have known at that time I was not incompetent to stand trial. The psychiatrist who read it, Dr. Martin Brandis, not just him, said it was an excellent, well-reasoned argument, and he found me competent to stand trial, right? So medical certainty. The same thing, but however, he found me incompetent again. He's been trying to coerce a nostrum, and he's been doing the bidding of the state attorney. The assistant state prosecutor, Thea Zumwalt, had said that she knows I'm the victim. In fact, she sounded like she was defending me. Like she was my attorney, the one representing me in court. She said this was in 2023 when she was appearing in July. She claimed she knows I was the victim. and she said she only filed this the charges against me because she wanted to use it as a mechanism to force me to go and do an evaluation, mental health evaluation, and take treatment, right? In fact, at that time, she didn't say take treatment. She just said she just used it as a mechanism to force me to go and do a mental health evaluation, which is a violation of my constitutional rights. Judge James Bonifant should have known that, and he should have said that. It violates my zone of privacy rights. The police can't just go, it's arbitrary for the police to come and attack me in my home and say they're going to take me to go and do an evaluation. Yeah, I wasn't aware at the time, of course, that GDAY had filed a perjured emergency evaluation petition, an ex parte order, which violated my rights because I had a right to have notice and to dispute it, to challenge it, and to have an impartial judge to bring my mother, my family, and they say, hey, no, he doesn't have a mental illness. The man who's filed this has a mental illness. That's GDAY. Probably is delusional, right? He's clearly delusional by calling himself my uncle, by saying he heard me, he saw me hallucinating. He lied that I sent him text messages and made calls. Till today, they haven't provided these text messages and calls till today, right? So he was clearly delusional, right? And nobody's questioned this. The Judge Bonifant hasn't questioned this, right? Um, so the other instance of judicial misconduct by Judge Bonifant, apart from the extraordinary delay, the dilatory tactics is used on behalf of the state, which tends to uh, diminish the evidence that the defendant has to that would tend to exonerate him, and his abuses in court, and the conflict of interest. uh, Judge Bonifant having access to knowing what he knows. I provided everything to show that the evidence the state has is fabricated, that they're using false witnesses, tainted evidence, perjured statements, and perjured documents. So there's essentially fraud on the court. This is a malicious prosecution. I've shown it. I showed that even the Thea Zomwalt, the person who originally filed the charges, that uh, she had a close relationship with Jide. She's closely associated with the Navy, which I had a lawsuit against, right? Because I worked for the Navy and I had an ongoing discrimination complaint against the Navy. Her grandfather was Elmo Zumwalt, who was chief of naval operations. Her father was part of the Navy, so she has this close affiliation that didn't make her appropriate to file charge to be the prosecutor in the case, right? Because she has this bias, you know, uh, for parties that I have a conflict with. So she had a conflict of interest. So he, of course, she's been removed from the case, but he himself didn't show this concern for uh, the appearance of the impropriety that I was being, of the courts that I was being subjected to. So he participated in violating the integrity of the judicial system. So he's been uh, something Judge Bonifant has been doing is um, he stained the judicial process, right? He's contributed to the abuse of the process. While I can't prove some other aspects that I'm going to mention, for instance, an attorney I had requested a bribe on behalf of Judge Bonifant and the state attorney to make the case go away. While I can't prove that the person didn't come on his own to offer that, but I'm sure if the FBI investigates properly, they'll be able to demonstrate it. They'll be able to find Judge Bonifant, uh, you know, that somebody solicited a bribe on behalf of Judge Bonifant, and he may be involved in taking some other financial gains as well, which are improper and, of course, stain the judicial process. It's odious, it's opprobrious. Instead, he's contributed in trying to make me appear opprobrious to the community. Um, he subjected me to a very severe, um, to just this severe undue hardship and punishment, and try to rehabilitate me, even though I haven't had a trial. Under the law, you can't rehabilitate, you can't punish the accused who is innocent until proven guilty. Well, these are allegations. The state hasn't proved their case, and they have the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. That cannot happen in my case. It's not something that they're able to do. Of course, the community might be biased. First of all, the case shouldn't have been charged. But in the event it makes it to trial and we get a jury, I've expressed to my attorney, my public defender, that I can't have a fair trial in Montgomery County, right? Because she was talking about how the county, reveres police officers, even though police officers uh, committed misconduct. It was an illegal search. There's a poisonous tree here, and she's failed to suppress evidence. She's failed to do many things, right, in discovery. Obviously, then we should have a change of venue, because this case is all about police misconduct. It's all about the illegal things that the police did. It's all about how they induced me to react in the way I did. They violated my constitutional rights. Judge Bonifant knows this, and he's done nothing. The case should have been dismissed. He should have, he should realize that this was a bad faith prosecution going on. So that's something that one cannot easily prove that indeed the attorney solicited were acting based on the instigation of Judge Bonifant, right? That's the offer, the request for a bribe to make the case go away. One can't prove that it was Judge Bonifant that made the request. Uh, so uh, I think I've pretty much touched a lot regarding the judicial misconduct of Judge James Bonifant concerning the malicious prosecution. By the way, it violates 18 USC sections 241 and 242. That's deprivation of rights and color of law violations. And they carry uh, criminal penalties if the DOJ, the federal government, prosecutes, and also the police with regard to the police brutality and malicious prosecution. That's addressed by 42 USC section 1983. So I'm going to cut this off here. If there's anything else that I remember that I didn't discuss regarding the judicial misconduct of Judge Bonifant, then I'll bring it up. But again, he's aware of all the tainted evidence, fabricated evidence, falsified evidence, perjuries, perjured ex parte orders that all violate my rights and all constitute fraud on the court. And he's participated in fraud on the court by making falsified comments and orders about my conduct. For instance, he said that I was hallucinating, delusional, all a fabrication, right? Just to get me committed, because he wanted me to volunteer to go and do a mental health evaluation, and I refused because that violates my zone of privacy rights. At ab initio, there was fraud. The way the police came, it was an illegal search. That's a poisonous tree, right? And they can't get a fruit. The fruit of the poisonous tree must be suppressed. They're not going to derive a benefit. The state is not going to derive a benefit after it violated my constitutional rights in the first place, right? And this is what Judge Bonifant seems to be focused on how he can benefit the state instead of being a fair judge. And that's why he should be removed as a judge. I understand that he will no longer be a judge in March of 2026, but the right thing to do is to prosecute Judge James Bonifant, to investigate and prosecute him. Of course, the Commission on Judicial Disabilities had informed me that he was under investigations. I'm not sure, what the outcome is. They haven't let me know. I reported into the Department of Justice and the FBI, and of course the Maryland Attorney General's office. The reason I came to America, actually the reason I came, was because I wanted to learn from America's legal system. When there's a judge who is doing things that are abominable, that impugn the integrity of the American legal, America's judicial process, our legal system, when there's a judge that's not impartial, that's biased like Judge James Bonifant, when there's a judge that abuses his office to victimize, to prey on defendants, who are entitled to their day in court, and our judge should be punished just like anybody else. No one is above the law. Not a judge, not Judge James Bonifant. He's not above the law. He might be above Maryland's laws, but I'm hoping that the federal government, the Department of Justice, will take notes and they will proceed with prosecuting the misconduct of Judge James Bonifant. Thank you so much. I'll keep you posted.